was thinking about how most of us are taught to just keep chasing the new leads. It's exhausting, and usually we already have everything we need right in front of us. Nathan is here to talk about why we need to stop hunting for the next deal and start looking at the people that we already know. It's about going deeper into the conversation so that business actually lasts. Welcome back to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya. I'm grateful that you're here. I think we all feel the pressure to always be closing and always be looking for the next big thing. But today we're talking about a different way of working. It's about slowing down and going deep, building trust that lasts and finding growth that already is hiding under your current network. I'm joined by Nathan Mark to explore why being more human is actually your biggest competitive advantage in business today. Nathan Mark is a relationship-driven sales leader, business strategist, and HVAC industry professional with a background that blends engineering, leadership, and high-level account development. With a degree in mechanical engineering and years of experience in both operations and commercial sales, Nathan has built a reputation for helping business owners or businesses grow through trust rather than just transactions. After beginning his career in manufacturing leadership with Coca-Cola, he transitioned into the HVAC industry, where he now supports strategic accounts and mentors sales talent. Nathan is the creator of the Mark Method, a philosophy centered on mastering your mindset, authenticity, and relationships. Through his book, Consulting and Selling, and the Selling Trust podcast, he helps leaders uncover the hidden revenue already sitting inside the existing networks. He is passionate about helping people rediscover the competitive advantage of empathy and consistency in an increasing automated world. Nathan, it's great to have you on the Champion Mindset Collective. Welcome.
Great to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'd love to explore your journey in life. How did you get here?
Man, in this very seat, it's been a long, kind of winding road, but it's funny because everything that I've done, even as like a little kid growing up selling lemonade and sodas and cookies on the sidewalk, I've always had a passion for sales and I've always liked building things, right? So hence the reason I went down the track of getting a mechanical engineering degree. That fascinated me in terms of being a problem solver, being a builder, a creator, right? But then there's always been that sales piece that was always just kind of like in there, lingering. And it's funny, I'm a huge advocate for mentorship, and I think it's because I didn't have a lot of strong third-party mentorship growing up. I had my parents, right? And, my dad was a sales executive like his whole life. My mom was a teacher, and both very well to do in terms of, my growth and development and where I was going. But I think it always kind of like takes a tribe. And so I didn't have that. And so I didn't have anybody kind of just banging on my head going, you need to sell. Like, that's great. Get your engineering degree, but like you need to sell or you need to do something with people because that's where you thrive. And so, going through the engineering track towards the last couple years of school, we started having a lot of group projects and I started realizing I was more comfortable getting up in front of the class and getting up in front of the teacher and selling the project at the end of the quarter than I was sitting down and doing the analysis and, just grinding out the work, right? And so the job market was terrible when I graduated. And so I started looking for other opportunities and ended up finding myself in a leadership and management development role with Coca-Cola. And so I was with them in this developmental program that had me running through different types of management positions at different plants over, a 2.5 year period. And through that, I kind of realized that like I got to be people facing. I can't be stuck in a cubicle. I can't be, in AutoCAD or SolidWorks all day long, just, head down, grinding it out. I got to have something social, but also ops was not for me. So if any of you from Coca-Cola that I used to work with are watching, yeah, I tip of a hat to you for living in that world because it is a fast-paced, crazy, wild world. And I'm not built for it. So I had the opportunity to go and do technical sales. Once again, it's funny because the opportunity came from a relationship, right? It was a friend of mine that I had graduated with who had gotten a job maybe a year after I did. Like I said, really hard job market. And he went into this technical sales role with an HVAC distributor. And he called me up one day and was like, "Hey, man, this job is you." And I said, "What does that even mean?" And he goes, "No, listen, dude, it's you. Like, it's a little technical, but it's a lot of connecting. It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of figuring people out. It's a lot of understanding people's needs and then working through that to give them something great and you get paid for it." I said, "Well, that sounds wonderful, but I have this commitment at Coca-Cola." So I finished up with them, kind of realized that I wasn't staying around with Coca-Cola for the long haul. Gave him a call and said, "Hey, is that interview still on the table?" He said, "Yes." I did the interview and I've been with that company for almost 14 years now and started at the bottom as, a sales support person, right? And worked my way up to executive account manager. And I've been, dealing with high level, high profile clients ever since. And then in the last, call it 3 or 4 years, I've been made to be in charge of all the people that come through our company from a sales perspective. They join my team and they get 2 to 3 years of training with me before they go off and they do their own journey. And so just the relationships that have affected my journey and my career to this point has been, it's been kind of a wild ride. But also just the fact that I landed in a position that was so authentically good for me. And I think a lot of that has to do with I've carried myself as the same human being for a very long time, right? The people that know me will tell you, "Hey, like Nathan is Nathan." Like since back then until now, he's pretty much the same guy, right? And I think that's why my buddy, gave me that phone call and gave me that opportunity. And I had, luckily enough going on in my life and enough wherewithal to kind of like say yes to the opportunity. And it's been incredibly fulfilling thus far. Right. And it continues to be very fulfilling and very rewarding as time goes on.
Yeah. And that consistency, that constant being who you are. Of course, you're going to change as a person, but being able to build that trust and relationships with the clients is so much more than just the sales pitch and this and that, right?
Y-
Because people want to connect human to human, and people want to know that the person they're talking to is understanding where they're at and how can they move them to a different place. By the way, you started off with a long and winding road, so I love how you brought the Beatles into Paul McCartney. That's what came to the top of my mind when you said that. You started in mechanical engineering and manufacturing before moving into a world of high level sales. I'm curious about the moment that you realized that technical side of business matters much less than the human connection side.
So it's wild. I kind of had an aha moment. It's probably, I don't know, towards the end of my first year, maybe mid second year. There were a few really, really smart guys in the office, and those guys were always middle of the pack, always. The guys who were always on top, just crushing it, were the guys that were out on the golf course. They were the guys that were going on vacation trips with their clients. They were guys that were, you know, loading HVAC units into the bed of their pickup truck on the weekend and personally delivering something to a client because our truck wasn't available or we weren't going to do a weekend delivery. It was these people that were embodying not only being like fun and cool and interesting, but also just had this level of customer focus that was like a 12 out of 10. It wasn't necessarily that the customer was always right, but more so I'm going to do anything to help my customer succeed. And those are two very, very different mindsets to be in.
What was going through your mind during that shift?
Well, that life was about to get a lot more fun. And don't get me wrong, right? So the first M in the Mark method is about mastering your product. Okay. Like if you're going to be in sales, you got to know what you're talking about, right? This is not a conversation that we're having to excuse ignorance. Because in order to truly help people, you got to really know what you're talking about. But it goes beyond just being the smartest person in the room. a lot of people get to that I am the smartest person in the room. I know everything there is to know about my product, and that's where it stops. And in fact, once you hit that point, that's actually where it starts. And so it was one of those things where it kind of taught me, hey, you really need to have, not everything, but at least a couple things that you know really, really well and that resonate with your company, are strengths of your company. And if you can have that in your tool belt and be personable and be willing to help and be willing to have this attitude of I wouldn't say self-sacrifice, but partnership and collaboration, man, that just sends you on a trajectory of success and it makes work so much more.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. Tell us a bit more about the Mark method.
Man. So the Mark method has been a fun journey. I initially set out to write a book, or not even write a book at first. It was really to put all my ideas down because I'm doing the sales training for my company. And I was tired of kind of repeating myself and saying the same things over and over and over. And, I thought that and I need to have some kind of resource that really touches on the soft skills side of things. One, so that I'm not constantly repeating myself, like I said. And two, so that I don't miss something, right? If there's an important nugget of information, I don't want one guy to have heard it and one gal to not have heard it, and then I'm doing them both a disservice, right? And so it started off kind of just as a living document and eventually kind of evolved into this book that I've written. And just to go over it really quick, it's squared. Mark is M squared ARK. The first M, like we talked about, is mastery of your product, your service, your offering, whatever it is that you're bringing to the table to your clients. The second M is mastery of your mindset. Because, as you're aware, it's something that kind of gets talked about, thrown around a lot. But to really go deep into that and hit it really hard, it is so incredibly important to sustain success.
Yeah, it's your foundation. It's foundational. So, yeah,
Yeah. The A is for authenticity. And that's not present day authenticity where you have some people that think that being authentic means you say, "Oh, hey, I've identified myself as an asshole." And that's just who I am and that's how I'm going to be and that is authentically me. No. Like we're talking about professional authenticity. So maybe someone has identified themselves as an asshole, but the professionally authentic thing to do is go, oh, hey, I need to improve that, right? Like my authenticity needs to lie within self improvement, and I need to work on myself and maybe round out my edges a little bit and stop being so rough because it's only hurting me. And so turn personal growth and personal development into part of your authentic self in order to round out some of your rough spots.
yeah. There's going to be values within each one of these acronyms, and the A is the authenticity is also integrity.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
because
Yes.
my father said to me, "Son, your word is your credibility. If you say you're going to do something, do it." Right.
100%.
So, absolutely, integrity and yeah, all the other values that you tie to that to authenticity. Yeah.
Yes. And so continuing on, we got the R, which is relationship, right? And we can literally talk this entire podcast about that. We won't, but there are many, many different kind of subsets and ways to look at relationship. But it really is just incorporating relationship building into your process. It has to be there. None of this transactional BS. You need to find people who you can partner with in order to positively affect not only their business, but your business as well. And then lastly is the K, which is keep it simple. And, the KISS principle, which I'm sure it's
Keep it
something we've
simple,
all,
stupid. Yeah.
yep. And we've all, I think we've all, or a lot of us have grown up and we've heard that adage, right? But it's so painfully important, especially when you're looking at growing and developing a business through relationships. A business that is dependent on people, which what business isn't, right? You're going to get to a point where whatever you're doing, you're going to be very successful and you're not going to have the bandwidth to continue growing because of your success. At that point, you really have to reevaluate and start simplifying and identifying processes that can either be, toned down leaned up or cut out in order to contract and consolidate so that then you can continue moving forward with success.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is master your craft,
Yep,
build the foundation with a really strong mindset
absolutely.
and a mindset of a champion. You don't give up, you keep going. And authenticity, which is integrity and credibility and everything else that goes with it. R is for relationships. So build strong, real relationships, not just
Yes.
acquaintances, but really get to understand and know the person that you're talking to. And because if you're in a personal relationship with someone, it takes a long time to get to know someone, right? Even the person that you're with.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And I remember Jay Shetty talking about this. He said, you never really get to know a person. You might spend 20 years with them, but you're still learning about them all the time. And then lastly, keep it simple. Simplify things, systemize things, make
Yep.
it so simple that people can understand it. I think we make things so complicated, not only in technical side of things, but in the way we speak and the way we relate to people. Thank you for that. It's something
Yeah.
that I'm going to take on board.
One thing that I'd love to just kind of like point out about this, and it was intentionally done, believe it or not. The first three, the MMA, that's all inward. It's all putting your oxygen mask on first. You have to help yourself and you have to get good with yourself. If you want to do therapy speak, you got to forgive yourself before you can move forward. And in many ways in business, you really have to kind of take a good hard look in the mirror and really make a decision that you're going to do the necessary work to make things work. And if you make that promise to yourself and you do the work, then you're ready for the other two things, which is relationship building and optimization.
Yeah.
But if you're not personally solid and you don't personally have that, rock solid foundation, the minute something hard or difficult or adverse comes your way, that's an opportunity for you to just crumble every single time. And so that's kind of why, it's been structured that way in my writings.
Everything external is a reflection of your internal. Your business is a reflection of your internal state, who you are, what you're
Right?
going through, right?
Yeah.
You mirror that. And if your business is not succeeding, then you've got to look at yourself and go internal, zoom out and go internal and go, what is it about me that am I not showing up as my true core, authentic self, pure self? And you may have to start chipping away at a whole lot of crud and the crust that you've built over a period of time. I liken this to when I was doing coaching. There's the CRUD method, which is effectively when you're born, you're at your purest form. But over time, you build up this crud, and
Yeah.
then you start to build a crust over the top because you don't want to show people that this is who you are. And so it's like a window. If you have a smudged window with crud on it, you can't see through it. So then you put a black piece of paper over it so people can't see. Or your room, which is messy, you close the door so when people come, they can't see the room. But you're not showing your authentic self that you're a messy person.
Yes.
So when it's not until you take the crust off and you start chipping away and wiping the window that you become your true core self.
I
And
love
so
that.
that internal work is so important. And yeah, you've got to do the work on the internal side as well. You often say that most businesses don't actually have a lead problem, they have a relationship depth problem. So, can you talk to me through what that actually looks like to shift from a hunting and grinding and chasing mindset to a more farming mindset?
Man, do you have 14 hours to really
Well, we might have to
grind?
bring you back on some
Okay.
on a series.
All
We'll
right,
have
all right,
to,
all right.
yeah.
Deal. I'll keep this as concise as possible. This has been like one of the most mind-blowing things about talking with potential clients. People who I'm trying to work with and, really decide if there's like some synergy that we can have for doing business together. And all my content that I create is all about relationships. The messaging is, I would say, pretty strong and consistent. And so we get this discussion with people. Hey, what is the number one thing? If I was a magic fairy and I had a wand and I could grant you one wish, what would that wish be? And the resounding answer is, I need more leads. If you can just give me more strong leads. I'm like, well, the answer should have been like, if I can just put you in the black for the whole year, that would be a better wish, but no, whatever. But then the question, my retort is why? Why? Well, and there's all these reasons about why you need more leads and how, the business they're tapped out on everything else and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so what would you rather do? Would you rather pick up the phone and call someone that you know who needs your services or might know someone that needs your services and have a phone call with that individual? Or would you like me to jot down some phone numbers on a piece of paper and give those to you and say, hey, call those people and try and sell them your thing? And that's usually like when the conversation kind of like starts to peter out because they realize that what they think they want and the problem that they think they have isn't really the problem. And it can look like a number of different things, but the fact of the matter is there's this neglect in continuing to tap the people that you've done business with that is just like mind-bogglingly high. And so, if the conversation continues and they start, okay, Mr. Relationship Guy, what do you suggest? And so it's like, okay, one of the things that I love doing to kind of like tap into relationships deeper and revitalize relationships and, do whatever you need to do to kind of like get the ball rolling with people again is events. And so like I have an entire training series. I call it the Event Revenue Series. I have a manual that I call the Event Cookbook, right? Because it's set up just like a cookbook. You can look for the type of event and it has the recipe, to like throw the event and anyway, I kind of like take them through this whole thing and it's like, hey, and when I say event, this isn't like 1,000-person seminar, right? An event, the only thing that an event is, and I define it, is something that is specific and memorable. So if you have one client that absolutely is a fanatic about coffee, you could show up to their office with some like rare coffee beans and a portable coffee grinder and a little drip system. And you could go and like literally in their office, like make them a pot of coffee and be like, listen, I know that you're the coffee person and I got turned on to this by a coffee friend of mine. And I wanted to make you this cup because I was like thinking about you. Plus we haven't talked in a long, whatever, right? Like you do this thing that just kind of puts them in this position of awe because they're like, oh my gosh, like, first of all, like, thank you for thinking about me and knowing that this is something I like. And second of all, thank you for going out of your way to do something so cool. And third, like, what were we talking about? Like, we're like, I want to do business with you now. So like, what can I do for you? Like it breaks down these barriers. And so I run people through this and this is the response I get. And this is where like, I just, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds like a lot of work. Like, yes, it is a lot of work. And cold calling new leads
He's even more.
is is more work and it sucks.
Yeah.
Like you're potentially doing a lot of work and having fun and engaging and like turning old flames, if you will, old business flames back on and having a good time doing it and having it not be awkward because like it's at the very worst, it's a warm call versus a completely cold call that is probably exploratory at best. And you literally spend the same time and energy and resources, except the warm call, you're probably going to have a 60 to 80% close rate on that warm call. Whereas that cold call, you're lucky, dude. If you're cold calling and you're hitting like a 20% close rate, you're like a cold call god. When we talked last time, it was, what's an unpopular opinion of yours? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and I'm going to tell you my unpopular opinion is less is more. We have been conditioned right now just by society, right? Social media, instant gratification. We've been conditioned so hard that more is more. When in reality, it's not, because more is distracting. More is consumer. More is transactional. Whereas less is thoughtful and genuine and focused and strategic. It's just better. And so I apologize for the high levels of emotion here, but it's like less is more is this thing that I've literally built my career around this. and have had massive amounts of success, doing it. And then I am constantly bombarded with people who are like, I need more. It's like, okay, yes, you need more sales. I'll give you that. You need more sales. We all want more sales, right? We all want a thriving business. But the way you're going about it in this, like, I need more sales by having more people is bananas. And so, yes, that is the hunter farmer mentality. That is stop hunting and start farming. Start using the same amount of energy to cultivate what you have rather than chasing down the next gazelle you see, because more likely than not, you're never going to catch that gazelle.
Yeah.
Like, and when you do, it's going to be awesome and you're going to feel really good until you have to go chase down another gazelle.
And like you said, it's so much hard work with cold calling. You don't know the person, and you're just knocking on the door, and they're going, "Who are you?" But like with someone that you know, you're like, "Hey, we haven't caught up for a while. Let's have a coffee, right?" And when you were talking about the guy with the coffee maker, it reminded me of the guy that started McDonald's. You know what, the Ray, whatever his name was, who used to go with the machines that he was selling, and then he comes across.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It reminded me of that story. I forget Ray Crocker, whatever his name is. I
Yeah.
forget. Yeah.
I had to kind of like made it a thing.
The last time you and I spoke, I took you for a tour of my hub that I've built. And what I learned over the last few weeks is that I have so much stuff to show people that it can be overwhelming. And so what I started to do is actually just show them a little bit of a glimpse.
Sure.
And I did that yesterday. And this morning I had a call with a podcast guest who is in chaos and says, I need this to simplify my process. Then I was on a call just before this interview. And again, I just showed a little bit of a glimpse. And the pain that she was feeling was, I'm finding it hard to manage all my guests. Well, I want your system. Now, I haven't had to go into too much detail. I just showed them a glimpse of it and they're like, I'm sold. I'm in.
Done.
And what I've learned is that rather than pitching and selling, it's actually like I genuinely have a heart to help people who are listening to this episode. You know, that's what the Champion Mindset Collective is set up, is to help you grow and learn. When I started podcasting in this podcast, it was like, how can I improve myself by having conversations and learning from the people that have gone before me or just a step ahead of me? How can I learn their wisdom and how can I then change myself, but then also help others? And so this podcast exists because I'm here to change the world, but collectively, I can't do it by myself, but collectively, I can draw upon the, the knowledge and the experience of other people and help wherever you are in your journey. And so that's where I am. And you coming on as a guest, this is not just a one-off thing. This is like a start of a relationship because I want to do more stuff with you because I feel aligned. I feel that we are on the same page. And so, yeah, just wanted to say that this is an amazing conversation, and
I love it.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate you and joining me. So, why do you think that we are so obsessed with chasing new leads, new tools, all sorts of things, instead of looking for what we already have?
Oh man, because if I had to put my finger on it, it kind of comes down to two things. People don't like the vulnerability that is required for forming relationships, and everybody is looking for a silver bullet, right? When in reality, I think I won't even say some, all business people that I know personally that are successful and good at what they do have a pretty high level of vulnerability. Like they don't hide stuff. They're very open, they're very honest, they're very matter of fact. They don't take themselves too seriously and they don't have secret sauce. They're just like, "Hey, you know what? I showed up, this is what I did, this is how I did it. These are the reasons why I did it and it worked. And this is just how I conduct myself and I continue to win over and over and over, right?" But it's getting to that point, right? And it's scary to be vulnerable. Oh my goodness, what if someone doesn't like me? What if they don't connect with me? What if they think the things that I like are stupid? What if I say something dumb and somebody judges me for it, or, I ask a bad question and then people in the room think I'm unintelligent. Yeah, putting yourself out there is a scary thing, but it's rewarding because when you do it correctly and you start breaking down barriers, you can actually make friends. These business relationships, which start out as a customer buyer, relationship, can just turn into a friend relationship that do business together. I also will say I have a whole, mess of things to say about that because our friends are also some of the people that we treat the worst, right? Like, so you got to be really careful when you make friends in business, that you understand that there are boundaries and that even though you are friends with someone, you still have to do the right thing over and over. It's like early in my career, I'll tell you a quick story. Early in my career, I had, a client of mine that I kind of like broed out with him. We connected, everything was good. He trusted me. He started giving me a bunch of work. And in my youngness and my naivety, my prices started creeping. And I started feeling really, really good about our relationship, right? Because it's like, oh man, like this guy's giving me all of this work. Like I keep making better margins and like, woo, yeah, yay me. Well, yay me until the day that he decided to price check me. And, I was probably in the neighborhood of 20, 25% than the next guy. And I got a phone call and it was definitely WTF phone call because it's like, hey, dude, you broke my trust. Like, we're cool and we like hanging out and we get along and we're friends and like we do good business together. But I also trusted you to like continue treating me like with respect and continue allowing me, you know, him saying this, right? Allowing me as your customer to also be successful. But you raising your prices like you've done has chewed into my ability to be successful. So not only are you hurting my business, but you're also hurting your business indirectly because I'm winning less work because of the pricing structure that you're giving me. And even if we were winning the same amount of work, I'm winning it at lower margins. So like my business is hurting while your business is thriving. And how is that fair? And so, not to get off on too much of a tangent here, but it's one of those things where like building the relationship is fun and it's exciting and it's like dating. Like dating is ooh, right? Like it's spicy and it's interesting. And even the first couple years, like say, okay, you get past the dating phase and you get married, right? You get like a permanent client that's a really good client. Okay, well, the first couple years might be great because you're in that honeymoon phase. But after that, that is when the real work starts kicking in. And yes, it's work. It's work. It is relationship based work. And you have to lead with honesty. You have to lead with partnership. You have to lead with commitment, like all of these things that they mirror a marriage very much so. And if you don't do them, either the relationship starts drifting. In my book, I call it a relationship half life. Like every time you invest in a relationship, that investment has a half life. And the more investments you make, like the larger that half life gets. But if you stop investing in that relationship and kind of start taking the relationship for granted, well, guess what? It's dwindling. Whether you like to admit it or not, it is dwindling. And you're allowing the door to be open, just for like a neglected wife, right? You're allowing that door to be opened up for someone else to potentially come in. And so I think that piece, when you talk to people about, hey, like, why aren't you doing this? Or why haven't you done more of this? I think all of that, if it doesn't come naturally to you, it can be very intimidating and very overwhelming. And so it's like, hey, I would rather just do business with a stranger and I'd rather take a couple bucks from 1,000 strangers than $1,000 from one close relationship.
And that makes a lot of sense and totally agree with you there. Like, how would you want to be treated if you were in their shoes as well? You know? Yeah. And it's got to be a win-win thing for both because it's a partnership. But if you're going from a place of just your own success rather than helping the other person, especially if you become friends, that's interesting. Now, I love the idea that a strong relationships create insulation for a business. How does having that deep trust actually protect a leader when the downturn hits or when the competitive pressure starts to ramp up?
I think it manifests itself in a few different ways. This ability to insulate yourself with a relationship. Another story for you. So just recently, I had a job with a gentleman that I took him and another guy from his company to Mexico to see our factory. And I've called on these two guys going on 10 years now. Always had a really close relationship with them, always been like tight with them, just like a human standpoint, we connect very much so. But that trip, that event, if you want to call it, really helped like deepen our relationship. And one of the guys, I got to ride on the airplane with him to Mexico, so I had 4.5 hours of undivided attention. Like, how often do you get that with a client? And another one of the guys, the second day we were there, we had some downtime between seeing the factory and when we were going to go out to dinner. And him and I spent like 3 hours in the pool together, literally just like chopping it up to the point where we actually almost missed dinner because like we, we were just we were just having great conversation and just hanging out, right? And I learned more on that trip in those, 2.5 days with them. I learned more about them than I had in the previous like 9 years that I've known them. Which is, so fast forward, it was maybe 2, 3 weeks after we got back from Mexico. We had a job. I had a job with one of these gentlemen. His name's James, that went south, right? One of my guys, because I am in this training team situation, right? The wheels fall off sometimes because the guys are new, things get missed, it happens. So he calls me up and he goes, "Hey man, this was on a Monday, right? He goes, "Hey man, I just want to let you know we had this job that we were doing on Sunday and you didn't provide me with adapter curbs for these new units. And so we had them up on the roof and they didn't fit the existing curbs. And we actually had to crane 3 of the 4 units back down, put them into storage. And by the way, the owner of the building decided to show up at the crane lift to watch the install happen. And so we got to look like chumps in front of our client." Now, in my opinion, this is where the path diverges of the relationship based path versus a transactional business path. So I was fortunate enough to take this path. And the conversation was, "Hey, you know what? You made us look like chumps in front of the owner and we didn't throw you under the bus. We just said that we missed it. Sorry about that. Big mistake. We'll own it. I know you, Nathan, are going to help make this right." I said, "Yeah, absolutely, dude. Give me an hour. Let me kind of like get all the info that I need and wrap my head around this and I'll take care of it." And so also, luckily, I have a good internal relationship with my boss. And so I called him up and I was like, "Hey man, this happened. Can I get approval to get these adapter curbs expedited and to the customer? And the team will make it up to the company. Like, we'll figure that piece out. But right now, can we get an approval to like green light the money and make this happen?" And he said, "Yeah, sure. I get it. Whatever you need, make sure that the customer is taken care of and that they're happy and made whole." Awesome. So I got back on the phone with James, told him what was up. "Hey, this is what we're going to do. I can expedite these things to you. I can have them to you before the week is over and you can have the job done before next Monday." And he had told the client that it was probably not going to happen for at least another like week and a half. So he was able to call his client, say, "Hey, listen, we're going to get this done faster than expected. No cost to you. It's all handled, taken care of, and blah, blah, blah." Anyway, it went as smoothly as it could have. And at the end of the day, they were able to turn a mistake into a relationship building opportunity with their client. Because the way that everything was responded to in a partnership sort of manner showed so well to their customer. It wasn't, "Oh, a mistake was made and sorry." It was, "Hey, this mistake was made. We're jumping on it. We're making you whole and we're going to do it as fast as humanly possible." And that's exactly what happened. And so now they've been shown in the light of not only do we fix our problems, but we do it when we say we're going to do it. And it's as fast as possible. And so, I ate about 10 grand on that job. And my customer also ate about 10 grand on that job with having to get a new crane and having to, send guys out and doing like a second mobilization and all this stuff. Right. So it ended up being a pretty 50-50 split of responsibility financially. Now, that was the relationship path. If there was no relationship there, And I've had this happen in the past in my early days of selling where I was trying to establish myself with accounts. This is also, by the way, why some of my accounts no longer exist and I have gotten rid of them. I've had accounts where it's like, if that would have happened, they would have given me one of these and they would have said, guess what? That's a $20,000 cost. You screwed up. You own it. You're going to fix it. Make it right. Call me when it's done. And that would have been the end of the conversation. And more than likely, because of just like the stance that my company takes with people who act like that, instead of the thing being done in a matter of 4 or 5 days, my company would have dug in its heels and said, screw you, we're not doing that. They would have dug their heels in, said, screw you, we're not doing it. Now the owner, the person who's paying to have this work done, they're getting shafted because of this conflict. Everybody loses. And what's funny is this example is not novel, right? This isn't some crazy, wild one-off thing. This is a fairly common occurrence in the construction industry, right? I mean, like mistakes, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? You know this from your background in ops, right? Whenever a project is happening, there's a million moving pieces. And if one thing falls off, it can have ripple effects, right? And so it's very, very commonly the same kind of thing happening in construction. And so, if you don't have partners in this industry, you're dead. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're gonna spend more time arguing and money lost because of time lost and trust lost, that by the time you're able to, kind of dig your way out of the problems, no one's gonna be there wanting to do business with you. And so I know that was a very long answer for a fairly short question.
No, no, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Like I've always had the mindset of what if I'm doing, especially in the technology world that I was in, the operational world, was that if I'm doing something, how does this impact the person on my left, and how does it impact the person on my right, right? And how does this impact the customer as well? Because we're all linked in a chain, we've got to make sure that we are all doing our bit, and that's part of also like building those internal relationships as well. Because if you didn't have those internal relationships, you could have gone to your boss and he would have gone, "Nah, you stuffed up. You sort it out, right?"
Yep.
But your boss is customer focused and obsessed, and so he was like, "Do whatever it takes, make it happen.
He
Look
gets
after the
it.
customer." Yeah, exactly. So when everyone shares the same vision and are on the same page, you have a better customer experience. I mean, a lot of large organizations, as they get bigger, they say they're customer obsessed, but really they're not.
Yeah, because sometimes being customer obsessed can cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
But but it never costs more than the money you make from doing it right.
yeah,
You know, you will
100%.
always you will always out earn the mistake if you fix the mistake correctly.
Correct. Yeah. You don't have to strive for perfection, but do it once and do it right. If it takes a little bit longer, just explain to the customer that, hey, I'm doing this the right way, but it's going to take a little bit longer. Don't rush through it. It's a lesson. Now, you have this 5 event revenue series that focuses on intentional experiences. So, what is the secret to creating customer event that feels like a genuine connection rather than just a corporate obligation?
So I think what you got to do in any event, you really have to lean into the authenticity piece. Anybody can throw a party. Anybody can take someone to a basketball game. Anybody can take someone out to a fancy dinner. But at the end of the day, if you're not answering the why correctly and you're not doing it because of the right who, you're going to find yourself in this inauthentic spot. It would be like a customer of yours being like, hey, I'm a vegan, or like our company is all vegans. And you're like, all right, we're going to go on a barbecue crawl. Woo. Like, is that a cool event? Yeah, totally. It's actually not. That's what I did for my bachelor party. It's a terrible idea. It sounds really good, like in theory, like you're going to go try a bunch of different barbecue. By the time you get
How
to
much
the
can you
third,
eat?
exactly. Like yes. But at the time, you're not thinking about that. You're just thinking, hey, there's a bunch of cool barbecue I'm going to go eat. Anyway,
You're probably overdoing your quota of protein for the day as well.
when your body is 50% cow and other smoked products. Yes.
And you got no fiber to
Yeah.
help move it
Yeah.
along.
You're ruining your tomorrow as well. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, that it did. I remember it fondly and unfondly. But it's that intentionality, right? You know, it's so crazy how this I set out to write this book to help my sales team, but really like the Mark method is actually applicable to anyone that is trying to work on relationships. And the event piece is actually talked about inside of that book as well. And what's wild is you approach these things very similarly to dating. If you don't know a girl and you want to get to know her, you're not like, "Hey, you want to go to Fiji?" I mean, like, like maybe you are, but like most sane women are going to be like, "Get out of here, you creep!" Like, I can't be bought. Like it's creepy and weird and like it's totally like you're putting the cart before the horse, right? Whereas it's like, hey, can I meet you at the park? Hey, can I get a cup of coffee, right? It's the same thing in business. Like you first have to decide if you like each other, right? I mean, like truly, because so much of what we do is based on emotion, even though like business is supposed to be like stone cold, no emotion, it's actually like 90% emotion, right?
Do you have a connection is also important as well.
Yes.
Are you
Yes.
aligned?
Yes. And so like if the coffee goes well, then maybe it turns into, a weekend trip to the mountains and then like in a few months or a year it's Fiji, right? Like and so it's kind of the same thing with clients. You have to be intentional about the way you set these events up. I'm at a really, really fun part of my career right now because I've known my clients all for like 8+ years. Like the newest clients of mine are probably 8 years old. And so I'm at this point where like we're all married, we're all, like we're in this, relationship maintenance mode and education and celebration. Like those are like the only three events that I do anymore is deepening relationships, educating clients, and celebrating wins. That's it. I don't do like warm calling events anymore where I'm trying to get leads and get recommendations and referrals for other people. I don't need to. I don't need more accounts. And I very rarely do kind of like a first date event. And the only time I really do that is when new blood comes into my accounts and I haven't met them. And then I need a way to get to know them. And so then it's like I set up like a group lunch or something and then get to know them with their, colleagues and it makes it easy and fun. But to answer your question more directly, there has to be intentionality and purpose behind the event in order for it to work well. Here's an interesting one, right? This was an event that I learned a lot about. Through this event, there's this place in Southern California called The Cellar, and awesome restaurant. They got great wine selection and they do super cool events. And one of the events that they do is called Cigars Under the Stars. And they got cigars there. They usually do some kind of like whiskey or scotch, like, company that comes in and you do tastings. Anyway, I ripped them off. Shout outs to, the seller. And so I did my own version of Cigars Under the Stars for my clients. And the wild thing about that event was how polarizing cigars are, right? Like tobacco products. Now, I'm kind of on the fence. Like socially, like I love a cigar, but like I'm not just smoking cigars like just for fun, right? And so I thought, hey, this would be fun. We'll do it at a cigar shop. We'll bring in, Cuban food. We'll do like a rum. I had like 5 different aged rums. So we did like a rum tasting. We had a coffee service. And then we even had like the guy that owned the cigar shop. He gave a 30-minute educational experience on like cigar tasting, right? Like how to smoke it and have like either your liquor or your coffee or chocolate or whatever to kind of like enhance the experience, kind of like a wine tasting, right? So it was a really nice event, like really nice event, high end, well executed, well done. And it was funny because when I started advertising for this, and it was a thank you event, by the way. Okay. So this was just like, This was for all of my customers. And it was, hey, thank you for the business that you've done with me. I really appreciate you. I want to show you a really nice night and just, come in, have some good food, smoke a cigar, take a load off, and have a great evening. No strings attached. And it was an inverse bell curve. Okay. It was either, hell yeah, I'll be there. That sounds amazing. Or every excuse or reason under the sun why it was a terrible idea and they couldn't come. And so it was kind of interesting because if I had known my clients better, I probably could have either one, done a different event that was a little bit more non polarizing and inclusive, or two, hosted two events and only invited the people that I knew were going to attend and say yes and be okay with that setting, and then done a separate event for the people who I knew like that wasn't their jam. So that was a big learning experience for me because once again, right, most people would say, my gosh, like you spent thousands of dollars on this thing and it was like top notch, so nice, so good, so fun, blah, 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 blah. Like anybody would be lucky to go to that. And it's like, well, yes, and it is a polarizing thing, right? It is something, that it's probably akin to like if I invited my clients to like go to church with me, like half of them would be like, oh yeah, I'll be there. And the other half would be like, I do not do that. So it's really just like you gotta know your audience and you gotta make sure that your event makes people feel seen and heard and known and cared about and understood. And if you can check all those boxes, then I'm not going to say your event's always going to be perfect, but you're probably 75% of the way there to having an excellent event that even if you don't have killer attendance, everybody that does show up is going to be talking about it. And so if you do it again, the attendance is going to go up and it's still going to just be an
Yeah.
excellent opportunity and an excellent way to get to know your clients and connect with them.
Know your clients, understand what they are into for a start, whether they like cigars or just food.
Right.
Yeah. And you could have a couple of options. And maybe some people will come to both. But yeah, the key is to get to know people, right?
Yeah.
You know, I used to go to this event a few years back. It was called AFQ, which stood for A Few Quiet Yarns. And at the event, you weren't allowed to talk about what you do. You weren't allowed to sell. If you tried to sell, you were automatically banned from that event.
That's awesome.
And you basically, the first question could not be about what do you do and anything about work. So I remember talking to this guy, Steve. He's in the security space and he starts talking about his motorbike. And I'm standing there for like 30 minutes listening to him talking about his motorbike. And he says to me, so what do you ride? I said, I don't. And he almost fell off his seat and he's like, what? You've been standing here for 30 minutes listening to me rambling on about my motorbike, yet you don't ride a motorbike. I said, no, because I'm getting to know you and I'm
Oh, that's
taking the
incredible.
time. Yeah. So that was a good lesson for me is that, when you give people the experience that they're, like you said, they are being seen, they're being heard, and it's not about you all the time, but it's about giving them the space because you never know how those people have grown up. You never know what is going on. The minute you open up, like I love conversation, I love talking. And in the past, people have said, Anthony, you talk too much, shut up. Right. So for me, this podcast was a way of shutting up and listening, but also having my own voice because I said,
Totally.
those guys are never going to say to me to shut up because I can speak as much as I want, but I'm going to give the time and experience to my guest who's going to share all these amazing things with me. I'm just going to sit there and listen and take it in. Yeah. So, so that's been my learning because there's a reason why God gave us, ears and a mouth, two of them. Exactly. And only one mouth. So yeah, we've got to learn when to shut this up and just listen through both these ears. Yeah. And maybe put something in one ear so it doesn't go out. It stays.
So to even add to that, we got 6 things on our face that can perceive and only one thing on our face that can output, right? You got ears, you got eyes, you got your nose. Like this is all perception.
Yeah.
but only God. Imagine if we did have three mouths.
There'll be a lot of hot air. A whole lot, a whole lot of talking shit. Oh my goodness, that would be interesting. I'll probably fall asleep actually, and you probably see me go boom off my seat and onto the floor. That would not be a good podcast. So we talk a lot about big moments in business, but you believe that thoughtful follow up is the superpower. Why is it that the small actions after a meeting can often carry more weight than a meeting itself?
It's the thank you, right? Well, I won't speak for the whole world on this. I won't speak for your audience on this, but right, I grew up being, having it, physically and metaphorically beat into me that you will show gratitude, like you will say your pleases and your thank yous, right? And so in the sales world, so many of us are taught the please, right? Ask for the sale, ask for the sale. If you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? That is advice that is given constantly. But where are the people saying, have you said thank you for the sale? Have you written a card and given it to someone that's done business with you? Have you shown up and just said, hey, I brought you this cup of coffee. I've, got you this bottle of wine. I got, this isn't a bribe. This is just saying, hey, I really, really appreciate your business. I really appreciate it. That job did not go 100% smoothly, but we got through it and you trusted me and we worked together and we made it to the end and I think we both made a little money. So thank you for your trust, right? So the thank you is just as important, if not more important than the please. I've had maybe one sales manager my entire career, and I've had way too many sales managers. Just leave it at that. I've had maybe one that was really focused on celebrating the wins, and it works, right? It what better reason to do something fun with someone than to celebrate work well done or work mostly well done. Like, like, hey, that was tough, but we did it, and so like, let's get a drink. I mean, I'll tell you right now, there is a job that I am currently working on. It is an absolute disaster. Like, luckily it's with a good client of mine and we are working together to kind of like navigate this really painful job. And last week I was on the phone with one of the project managers with my client working the project. I just told him, listen, dude, I don't care like when we're done with this because it's drug on over a year. I said, as soon as this is over, we're gonna go party. And then it's really funny because he goes, well, this project's been so hard. I think it needs to be kind of like a hookers and blow kind of party. And I go, hey, I got kids and a wife now. He goes, yeah. I go, so what we'll do is we'll spend the equivalent amount of money on just like really good food and drinks. I said, all right, all right, all right, all right, we'll do that. But it's this thing where, hey, when we're off this job, there is going to be such a reason to celebrate because we got through it and we teamed up and we worked together and we kept moving the ball regardless of all the roadblocks and challenges and nonsense that's going on. And so when it is done, I mean, truly, it's going to be this moment of just like, whoo, hallelujah, like we did it. And he knows it. I know it. And if I don't do it, it will be a massive opportunity lost to come out of something so difficult and so challenging and not shine a spotlight on us finishing it successfully. That will be a massive loss. And so like you got to celebrate the wins. You got to say thank you. And people will want to do work with you.
Yeah.
If they know that, hey, you know what, when we work together and things go well and like it's good and like, we both make a bunch of money, we go party afterwards. Oh, yeah, great. Let's do it. Make it fun.
Yeah, 100%. What is a simple way that someone can start being more intentional with their follow ups today?
Gosh, that's tough because fortune is in the follow up, right? Like, but also I think follow ups are becoming kind of bastardized by AI. Like, there's so many AI tools that create automated follow ups and automated messaging through CRMs that people just kind of blow them off now. Like, they don't care because it's just technology noise. So, I've actually reduced my follow up list substantially where I have two buckets, right? Any job that's over $100,000, I'm following up on. Or if it's not over $100,000, but it's unique or important in some kind of way, and that's only determined by, the conversation with the client, right? So say it's like a $20,000 job, but I have a conversation with the client and their response to me is, "Hey, this is our first job with this client." Right? This is an important job. It means a lot to us. We need to win this job in order to start working with them and establish our relationship. Okay, that's an important job. It's
Yeah.
not it's not a high dollar job, but it's a very important job.
Because it's the
So
start of a
jobs like
relationship, right? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so, if my ability to help get that job across the finish line with them helps them get more business, then that's high priority. And so those are really like, expensive jobs and then important jobs, however I label them. That's what I follow up on now. And I usually do it with a phone. Occasionally I'll send follow-up emails with like if I'm doing multiple big projects with them, just to kind of capture it. But even then, I usually try and follow that up with a phone call and just make it personal and intentional. And then try not to talk about work. I'll feather the follow up in at the end, but the beginning is, "Hey man, how you been? Do you have a good weekend? Or how was your son's little league game? Or, oh, hey, dude, your daughter, what is she, 5 now? Like, time flies, right? And like, give a shit, right? Like care about the person and talk to them about their day. Cause like you said earlier, you don't know where someone's at in their day or their week or like what they're going through. So that ability to call them up and kind of give them an opportunity to talk and emote and express themselves and decompress a little bit. Sometimes it's exactly what somebody needs, especially, sorry, ladies, but you guys are really good at talking about your emotions and, expressing yourselves. Us guys, like most of us grow up thinking it's taboo. And so when we're giving that to another man, the opportunity to talk and the opportunity to express themselves, I think that in and of itself is a gift. And then you can talk about work later.
Yeah. 100%. I caught up with someone this week, gone, actually last week, and hadn't seen him for a couple of years. And I didn't realize what was happening in his life. And he's got major health issues. Like basically his immune system is attacking him, attacking every part of it.
Jeez.
And, I was expecting to turn up having a conversation about working together and so on. But we spent most of the time really just focused on, and he burst out into tears 3 times in the middle of a cafe. But I held space for him and just, I was there. And yeah, to see a grown man just burst into tears and cry, it's a pretty significant thing for a guy to do that, right? And but when you're broken and when you're at the point of no return and you haven't got many options left, yeah. So you got to give them the space. Now, I'm really interested in how personal development and mindset impact our ability to show up for others. And that's, I guess, I've answered my own question in a way because I showed up for someone. And so, how does working on yourself actually change the way you lead and build trust with customers?
It's a really, really good question. I think I'm going to answer that in a roundabout way. When I was younger, I didn't really care that much about working on myself. I cared a lot about learning sales tactics, right? I wanted to learn the right things to say, the right approaches to make, and it didn't really serve me all that well. I'm naturally a connector. So I think I had that going for me. And so my personal development wasn't so much on the personal development, it was more like skill development. But what I think really changed my approach to business and my approach to my clients and customers is when I had kids. I started reading a lot about personal development, a lot about patience, a lot about, like we've talked about, listening and, not being judgmental and being someone that just is not always, and this is, I think it's a guy thing, right? But just trying to like solve problems, right? I am a problem solver, right? I mean, I am happy to listen to what you have to say and then give you the way to fix it, which a lot of people don't want,
They
right?
just want to be
And
listened. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I've really had to kind of stow, if you will, but it was having kids that really kind of like brought that out in me and made me lean more into empathy and be better emotionally. And so that has then translated into business. And honestly, I would almost say it's had the biggest impact on my young sales team. They're like my work kids. I'm better at dealing with them than I've ever been in the past. I used to be very spicy, not always for the best. But then the other thing that it's had a profound effect on is my internal customers. And so when I say that, I mean, like support roles within my company. So people in other departments, like the credit department or the parts department, or these ancillary departments where when I was young and dumb and spicy, if you will, all I thought was, if you're not helping me positively affect the outcome with this customer, you're hurting me and you are now my enemy. You're stopping me from helping the company by stopping me from helping the customer. And I would literally go to war with people internally. And did it work? Maybe. Probably not. I developed quite a negative reputation in the company internally for a number of years because I was not viewing those people as customers themselves. I was viewing them as tools. And if they weren't helping, then they were to be discarded. And so, to your point, how does personal development, help you be better and, interact, form relationships, do the job better? This idea of making myself a better dad was, I guess, the catalyst to really kind of learning to be just a better human. And then having the opportunity to be like, oh shit, wow. I have some apologizing to do. I don't know if you've ever watched a bridge be unburned, but it's quite the process. Yeah, and it's funny because it's like that visualization that people like to use where it's like every mean word you say is like driving a nail into a board, right? And every time you apologize, you pull the nail out. Well, okay, you now have a board that has no nails in it, but the board still has a bunch of holes. That board is not the same board that it was before the damage was done. And so, I'm sure there are internal relationships in my company right now that could be better, could be much better. They're good enough. They're not toxic. They're not bad. They're okay. They're good. But they could probably be so much better had I not had a period of time in my life where that just wasn't a priority of mine. And I think it also goes back to knowing that, or now knowing and feeling that mentorship, especially at younger stages of life from third parties, people that aren't your mom and dad, people that aren't your grandparents, and people that are willing to like really call you out on your shit is like so important because that can be a catalyst to someone going, oh, hey, like, yeah, maybe I do need to change. Maybe I do need to pick up that book and read and develop and get better because this mindset of personal development, this mindset of kindness and affecting the world with kindness and grace, fruit of the spirit, right? It really does go a long way. You truly do get more bees with honey.
You do. Yeah. And, it's like, are you coming from a place of cause or effect? And are you above or below the line, with what you're doing? And, like, I think for most people, especially guys, a lot of, most part of upbringing or growing up to a certain point, you're below the line. And then it's not until you, like you said, you become a parent. And for me, at 43 is when I started changing because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a parent now. And I have this human, that little human that I've got to look after and be a role model for. And all that past shit, the way I used to react to things and let all those past triggers and things that were causing me to be are no longer good. I did the same. I had to change. I had to become a better dad. I had to become a better human. And the only way to do that was to go internal. Getting to the awareness was the first part, and the realization that hey, the results that I'm getting, I'm working. I don't know if you've ever heard of the adult growth model, but it's a 4-stage process where when you're born, you're reliant on your parents because you can't do jack shit for yourself, right? Basically, you're you're a you're a blob, and your head moves around, and that's about it. But that's a functional reliance, whereas when you're in your adult stage and you're reliant on other people, then that's dysfunctional. Then you get to a point where you become rebellious. Now, in the teenage years, your brain reforms and you become rebellious, and you're pretty much, for guys, they think they're invincible and to go do a whole lot of stupid stuff, right? But then as an adult, you're rebellious is a dysfunctional way of living. Then you get to the result stage and you go, okay, I'm getting these results and I'm not really liking these results that I'm getting. And then on the other side, you're just completely oblivious to what's going on. You get to the realization stage where you go, I don't like these results and I need to change. And that's the point when you make that change in your life. And if nothing changes, then guess what? Nothing changes. Yeah. It's pretty simple. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I believe that we exist on this earth to expand and grow and get out of a comfort zone. I love what Rob Dial says, is that your dreams die in your comfort zone. And so, you know, that should be scary enough for anyone to then go, stuff the shit. You know, I'm just going to get uncomfortable and just get on with it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
true.
Just,
It's true.
just get on with it. One last question before we go into the quickfire questions
You got it.
is, how does your personal brand reflect the way you be treated in business?
So, it's don't want to sound too cliche, but really like the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do to you. I really try to treat my clients like I want to be treated. I want to have respect. I want to have trust. I want to have someone calling me up asking me if things are okay. I want someone, checking in with me about projects and checking in with me about life and having me be an integral part of their business. So I want to, and I try to reciprocate that and, make my clients an integral part of my business and, call them up and ask them how they're doing and try and do stuff with them. The doing events, while it is moving the needle from a business standpoint, right? It's still it's still wellness within work, right? I just kind of recently kind of put these thoughts to paper on my LinkedIn the other day. And it was like, what was the title? What if work life balance isn't what we need to be chasing? And the idea behind this and why I am such a heavy believer in relationship based business and finding, riches in relationships and uncovering the hidden wealth in your existing clients and your existing client pool is because, more and more now, more than ever, we talk about balance and we talk about wellness and we talk about personal fulfillment and we talk about connection, right? I think there's stats out there right now that say we're more connected than we have ever been in the history of humanity. And yet there are more cases of depression and people feeling isolated and alone than in any time up until now, right? And so I think one of the things that has really been a saving grace for me is I try and incorporate my wellness into work. If I want to go to a concert because somebody that I enjoy listening to is in town, well, guess what? I'm going to invite 3 clients. I get to go to the concert and I get to have a great time with some cool people. If there's a new restaurant that opens up that has this bitchin' chef that has, rave reviews, well, guess what? I'm going to take me and my wife. Well, and guess what? I'm going to take a client and their wife or their husband, right? Because now I'm integrating my wellness into my work. And everyone, this whole like myth, I think it's a lie. Like work-life balance is a lie
It is a lie. Yeah.
because balance indicates like a static
Yeah.
situation,
There's no
right?
balance.
There is no balance, right? Because life is constantly changing. It's more like the work-life pie. There's only 100%. And however you divvy that 100% up, you better be satisfied with the sizes of the slices.
Yeah. I like to say harmony. So for me, it's alignment, connection, and harmony, right?
I like that.
And so when you, like, as I'm a singer, so as a singer, if I'm singing with three other people, if I can't hear them, then I'm not in harmony. I'm actually singing above them, right? But when you can hear one voice between four people singing, that's what you call harmony,
Yeah.
right? So, so that's what I would say. There is no work-life balance. It's actually how do you harmonize your life
Yeah.
amongst everything else that's going on, right? And there are going to be times when one piece of your life is going to have to step up, and someone just like in a relationship, when you're
100%.
down, your partner has to step up or your wife has to step up. When she's down, you have to step up, and you support each other, you build each other up. So, and in business, that's what I think is needed more is that you're building a relationship with a business owner and a business. You've got to build that business up.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So very quickly, if people have been watching this episode and they liked what I've heard and they resonated with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Oh,
Yeah.
man, you can go find me on nathanmark.com. That's my website. I have ways on there to just get a hold of me. You can message me, you can contact me. That's easy. I got a LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think, yeah, just Nathan Mark at LinkedIn or the Mark Method, Facebook, Instagram.
We'll put all those
I
links
have,
into the show notes.
yep, yep.
Yeah,
I got the Selling
and
Trust
also,
podcast.
yeah, you'll get a dedicated page on the website, on the Champion Mindset website. So all the information will be there, including the videos, the articles, the guide, everything. Yeah. Now, quick fire questions, very quick, six
Let's
very
do it.
quick, one word, short sentence.
You
Because
got it.
I know that you've got your family back, and I'm sure you're raring to go and see them.
Promise to keep it short.
Yeah. How do you define success? Has a definition evolved for you over time?
It has completely evolved for me. It used to be the top income. If I was doing better than all the salespeople that I was competing against in work, I was successful. And then judging that year after year based against myself if I was number one. And that now has been more geared towards time freedom. I want a comfortable, sustainable income, but I want the ability to choose what I do with my time because I have a wife and I have children now, and the ability to make time for them and be available and have that choice, that is what success looks like to me now.
Who's been your greatest inspiration and what?
Man, this might sound a little bit cheesy, but Ryan Reynolds. I've watched him from, the beginning of his career to where he's at right now, and the transformation that that guy has gone through has been pretty insane. From actor to entrepreneur and business owner. He's almost like I love Richard Branson. He's also kind of like one of my top dog hero kind of inspirations. But I think Ryan Reynolds is almost like a young Richard Branson.
And relatable as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love the most about Ryan Reynolds is the fact that he's the same guy from like an authenticity standpoint. He's the same guy he was 20 years ago, right? He's the same goofy, quirky, quick-witted dude. And he's continued to evolve as a business person and do really impressive things without changing him.
That's his authentic brand, right? That's who he
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is something that you believe that others may disagree with?
Less is more. Less is more. And when people learn that it's true, that more is not more, especially in work, more is not more. When you realize that less is more, your life becomes sustainable. You can have focus, you can have strategy, you can do planning. So much opens up to you when you realize that less is more.
If you could go back and give young Nathan some advice, what would it be?
Man, you don't need a timeline. I think one of my biggest problems growing up was I thought I had to be, I thought there were timeline milestones. You got to be married before you're 30. You got to have at least 2 kids. You got to have a job making at least this much money by this age. I think that the pressure of a timeline screws up your life. It forces you to make decisions you would have never ever made, but you do it under duress. Don't have the timeline. Understand what you want and understand what your goals are, and specifically work towards goals and objectives, but you don't really need to have them be time bound because it's your life and it needs to be absolutely as correct as possible, right? Having a timeline doesn't allow for personal grace, I think. And so you get caught up with trying to achieve something by a certain date and you start making exceptions, which isn't fair to yourself.
Yeah. I would summarize that by direction versus distance.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
you're good at the short answer thing.
What is one message that you like to share with the world in a short answer?
Do something that makes you happy, but you also have to pay the bills, right? It is a give and take. Make sure you have hobbies. I've asked so many people, what's your brand? Because that's where it all starts. It's who you are. It's how you lean into your authentic self. And it's amazing at the number of people who can't express what their brand is. And it's like, you got to know what makes you happy. You got to do things that make you happy. You got to have, if you're working a job to pay the bills, then at least that you don't like, okay, which that happens a lot because life is expensive, at least have hobbies that bring you joy and you can have creative expression through your hobbies and you have an outlet. For me, it's cooking. I love, 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 love to cook. And it is how I get creative expression out. It is how I decompress. It's how I feed my family. And I would never do it as a career unless I had absolute gobs of money to just lose, right? And I'd run a really crappy, really poorly run restaurant and just lose money all the time, but I'd have a blast doing it. So I'm not going to make money going the food route. So that's never even been a thought of mine. But I love it and it has a place near and dear to my heart. And I make sure to incorporate that into my life because it brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Joy before success.
But you got to pay the bills.
Got to pay the bills. Yeah.
Right?
100%.
This idea of I'm going to go get a 4-year college degree in, I don't know, like rodent studies or like marine biology. And no knock to the marine biologists out there, but like, unless you are a really good business person and know how to turn that into something that can actually support life income. And hey, maybe you want to like live in a van by yourself for the rest of your life. Then guess what? Go be a marine biologist and survive off of a very small sum of money. But if your aspirations are like, oh, I want to have some stuff and I want to, provide for a few kids and like you need to have a career or at least a growth mindset that gets you to those things that you want. And you might not love what you're doing to like financially afford that, but you can still have enough money for some hobbies and stuff that really bring you a lot of fulfillment.
Yeah. And that comes back down to what we were saying before about you got to do the stuff that you got to do, but also harmonize your life so that you're actually having some joy and fun in life as well. Yeah. Last question. What does it mean to you to be a champion and have a champion mindset?
So this is an interesting one. So back in, feudal times, there were kings, but kings had their champions. And so we're not all cut out to be kings. We're not. That comes with a lot of responsibility. That comes with doing a lot of things, a insane amount of leadership and responsibility. But I think anybody can be a champion. Anybody can hold up that banner and be the absolute best at something, a pinnacle person in a thing, right? And really own it and be able to teach it and live it and breathe it and give back. And I think the biggest part of being a champion is it's very akin to being a strong leader where you are out in front. You're not really looking back. A champion in battle, they're leading the charge. They're the guy that's or the girl, Joan of Arc, right? Getting people pumped up and stoked and like let's do this, and rallying the people around them by example, right? And to your point, that champion mindset, right? They're the people that don't stop when the things get hard. They're the people that keep going when adversity strikes, you're on the battlefield and you get stabbed, and instead of just going, oh, well, that's the end of it. Nope, you keep going, right? You're gonna keep stabbing back, right? You're gonna keep the momentum going, even though something painful happened to you. A lot of that nowadays in our work battlefields happens with just making a conscious decision to not let things keep you down and hold you back and defeat you. And so I think that's that champion character and that champion mindset is that of a person that is continuing to push and fight the good fight and do the right things and inspire the people around them, even when things get difficult and hard. And most people those people are going to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's almost 2 hours, and yes, it's a great reminder that in this world of full of AI automation, taking time to truly see people and build real relationships and trust, which is what actually keeps a business standing when things get tough. My biggest takeaway is that when the idea of the relationship insulation, the trust is not just a thing to have, it's a strategic shield for your business. Nathan, thank you for sharing your heart and the process with us today. If you found it helpful, please share it with someone. Subscribe to the podcast. It's interesting how many people listen but don't subscribe. The more you subscribe, the more the algorithm puts it out in front of other people. So you can find all the links in the show notes, and you'll also be able to go to the Champion Mindset Collective Hub, see the page with all the information on it, and then be able to connect with Nathan. If you want to see how AI can also free up time in more meaningful ways, but in keeping that human connection, then book an AI clarity assessment with me and find out how AI can help you best with those automation. You can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for being part of this Champion Mindset Collective podcast episode. We'll see you next time. Lastly, I just want to say to you, you are loved, you are worthy, champion your life, champion your greatness, and have an amazing day.